Yeah, a lot to talk about, Paul. We're going to have the Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin phone call tomorrow, as you mentioned. That's going to be a key point of focus for the foreign ministers, trying to get ahead of that, trying to preview that, look into what might be discussed. It is unacceptable, as far as EU leaders are concerned, and EU foreign ministers as well, to have the idea that two countries are dividing up the assets of a third country, of Russia and the United States, deciding what's happening inside Ukraine. So they want to be trying to come to a united position on that. The $40 billion of extra military aid that Kaja Kallas would like to see going to the Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian government. She would also like to try to find a way to ensure that countries that are more pro-Russia, like Hungary and Slovakia, both incidentally of which have borders with Ukraine, she would like to find a way to ensure that there are no obstacles to that ambition of ensuring another $40 billion of aid, that Budapest and Bratislava are not putting up too much of a resistance. Prime Minister Robert Fico and Prime Minister Viktor Orban certainly are more pro-Moscow in their outlook. So there's been a lot to discuss in terms of Ukraine, especially when it comes to the idea of this deployment of peacekeeping troops potentially inside Ukraine. On Sunday, the French President Emmanuel Macron saying that what happens inside Ukraine is up for Ukraine to decide because it's a sovereign nation. Moscow can't decide whether it's in favour or not of peacekeepers inside Ukraine. Emmanuel Macron saying that's a decision for Kyiv alone.
And later, Ross, EU foreign ministers will turn their attention to Syria, won't they?
Yeah, these are the two big crises on the menu for the foreign ministers to be discussing today in Brussels. It's coming ahead of the EU Council of Leaders, presidents, prime ministers and chancellors in Brussels on Thursday and Friday. And Syria, this second major objective for foreign ministers to be speaking to today. They're also going to be in the presence of the Syrian foreign minister, Assad Shaibani. He's going to be there to try to put forward the points of view of the developing foreign policy when it comes to the new fledgling interim Syrian government. But certainly one problem that is now presented itself to the foreign ministers is what's been happening on the Mediterranean coast of Syria over the past week to 10 days or so in the areas Latakia and Tartus on the coast, particularly a stronghold of the Alawite part of the Shia Islam. Now that's the Assad family branch of Islam to which he belonged, the family which is now in exile in Russia, and so there has been this crackdown on people who have been associated with that sect, and we have had a response from the government which said that it wants to punish all of those who are responsible. It's problematic for the EU, Paul, because they had already on the 24th of February removed some sanctions, saying it was going to dial down some of its restrictive measures on Syria, including removing 5 entities that it had on the list of fund freezing, including the national airlines, Syrian Arab Airlines, and certain banks as well. The EU saying it's going to start to decrease the restrictions on those to try to ensure that it can facilitate a prosperous Syria going forward, a prosperous Syrian business environment. But the violence, with more than 1,000 people killed in the last 10 days, has certainly caused a problem for the EU when it comes to speaking to Syria, and that will form part of the discussions later when they meet face to face.